My name is Jessica. I'm Chief People and Culture Officer at Palo IT. We are a B Corp certified organization. We specialize in tech for good solutions and also in emerging tech. So today we will be discussing how technology, learning and culture come together in shaping the future of work. But before, let me ask you this. Do you ever wonder what drives your business decisions? How much agency do you have in making business decisions? Well, what if I told you that the decisions made in 1910 have set the course for business decision we make today? Picture this: America in the beginning of the 20th century. The world is undergoing massive economic and social shifts. Think of urbanization, globalization, social movement, and an overall shift in economic and social movements. And yet, this is the time the US government decides to make a bullish and extremely bold and forward-thinking move, which is prioritizing and expanding access to higher education. Why? Well, to build a knowledge-based economy, the US government needed more people to gain skills and knowledge to be able to move from an agriculture economy to a knowledge-based economy. So you see, in the beginning of the 20th century, most jobs were either agriculture or manual, right? But the visionary of the time recognized that to be able to move into a different sort of economy, so the knowledge-based economy, they needed to use knowledge as a currency. And as a matter of fact, it became one of the most important economic driver, knowledge. What they understood is for the nation to prosper in the industrialized world, they needed an educated workforce. The same way business leaders recognize that to be able to future-proof their workforce, they need to consider different strategies when it comes to learning and development. So, long story short, by the mid-20th century, the results were evident. America became one of the most educated nations globally, and that's a reputation that was built classroom by classroom, brick by brick. And this eventually led to what economists call the educational earning premium or educational income premium, which is basically the correlation between a person's educational qualification and the earning potential. So what are the ripple effects? Well, the businesses that operate today operate in an ecosystem that was crafted by this very focus on educational priorities. So, to shape the future of work, we must draw inspiration from the past. The same way the US government decided to shift the focus on education priorities at a very uncertain time, and honestly, arguably, we are in very uncertain times, well, business leaders need to change the understanding of how learning and development strategies will impact the future of work. So today we will see how to do that. We will be understanding, hopefully, the lessons of the past, and we will be charting a roadmap for the resilient businesses of the future. Let me start with this one first. The high road and low road strategies. Both are extremely important business strategies. They are pivotal, as a matter of fact. Let's consider the first one. The low road approach, low road strategy. This is an organizational priority where companies tend to focus on instant saving. And usually this type of approach may or may not yield quick profit boost or quick profit spikes. And it's usually, again, focused on very short-termism, and it may or may not, again, lead to potential profitability boost, but it's usually done by sidelining long-term workforce investment. So you see, one side, it's great for shareholders. You can boost economic spikes, but on the other side, you might end up with an overall inflated human capital turnover, a disengaged workforce, and so on and so on. On the other side, you have the high road strategy, which is, again, an organizational priority where companies would be channeling resources into training and development and skill enhancement, and the overall focus on employees' engagement. This tends to yield better results over the medium to long term. And companies that have adopted this type of strategies usually notice an overall improvement of the financial performance. So I'm not here to say that one strategy is better than the other. That's not what I'm saying. Because as we can see, both may eventually lead to positive profitability lines. What I'm saying on the other side is, if you want to future-proof your workforce, only one strategy will work. And that's a high road strategy. Reflecting back on my introduction, the industrialized age was the archetype of the low road strategies. If you think of Henry Ford and how the moving assembly lines were introduced and how the Model T went from being built 13 hours to 93 minutes. 13 hours to 93 minutes. How amazing was that? So the automobile industry blossomed, obviously. But it came at a very high cost. The cost of huge human capital turnover rates, a low overall workforce engagement, not great productivity, not great job satisfaction. And look, I am yet to meet a business leader who says that high human capital turnover is not a problem. Yet to meet this person. Because ultimately, you cannot run a business long-term on 60, 70% human capital turnover. As we ushered into the information age, this is very much where we see how the high road strategy can provide a robust and efficient framework for businesses. I have decided to focus on 4 today because time is limited, sadly. And it's mainly, I picked those ones because there's so many different high road strategies out there. I picked 4 of my favorite ones simply because 3 of them are strategies we have at Palo IT and that have been extremely effective on our profitability line. So the first one, obviously, being in a tech conference, is the innovation-driven excellence. And I can't think of a better company than Palo IT, obviously, but also Apple, to align with this strategy. So basically, Apple, even though I'm a Samsung user, it's undeniable that they do so much more than sell products. They invented a lifestyle, and there is no going back. And yes, it was done through massive investment in R&D, but it's also done because of the long-lasting investment in learning and development capabilities for their workforce. So if we agree that necessity, be it business necessity or profitability necessity, is the mother of innovation, we must also agree that innovation hungers knowledge. The second strategy is the operational excellence, and again, one of the best company you can think about when it comes to operational excellence is Toyota, with the Toyota Way and the lean manufacturing, right? But the philosophy, which is perpetual commitment to betterment, is also a philosophy, business strategy that was adopted by companies like Salesforce or Adobe. The third one is a pretty obvious one, is it right? It's the employee-centric approach. It's one that has highlighted our strategies at Palo IT. And without going into many details, it's basically organizations that decide to focus a big chunk of the revenue and resources into training their employees. There are many studies out there that have been conducted specifically on Google and Microsoft to see how much of their profitability is linked to the investment they have made into their workforce. And if you're a business leader today, or you own your startup and you are considering maybe investing in your workforce, there are some studies that are honestly some of the most amazing things you can read, because this study in particular says that companies that have invested in their workforce can yield up to 4 times more profitability. $1, 4x. The last one, it is one of my favorites simply because it puts the high road strategy in a very different light. And that's leveraging modern tech platforms. So companies like AWS, obviously, and Microsoft Azure. You can think about the process, about this high road strategy, as the democratization of technology. And why is it a high road strategy? Because it serves the ecosystem. And it's done in such a way that companies are able, startups in particular, are able to focus on delivering value, on innovation, instead of worrying of building robust infrastructure. So that's another high road strategy to consider. So as we see, the low road strategy, quick profitability boost, instant saving. On the other side, you have the high road strategy that usually tends to focus on sustainable profitability channels, effectively true in the tech domain. And then you have the strategy, which is about emphasizing innovation, delivering value, and engaging employees, right? And it makes it very clear, that long-term profitability hinges on a company's strategy, but more importantly, on its commitment to its people and its offering. Now that we have the right strategy, probably thinking, I'm good, I'm going to generate and yield the best innovation in my organization because I'm implementing the high road strategy. Well, no, it would be too easy, right? And business is tricky this way. So even with the right strategy, you might sometimes fall in what we call the innovator dilemma. So the innovator dilemma is a paradox that was coined by Professor Christensen from Harvard Business School in 1997. And basically what it says is company can do everything right. Right management, right services, right product, right HR, everything right, and still lose market dominance. Why is that? Well, those companies tend to over-focus, over-invest on current needs, and it's usually done by sidelining disruptive innovation. You see, innovation can stem from different channels. You have the external innovation. Think of companies like Grab or Uber coming into the taxi industry and disrupting completely that industry. Those are external players. And then you have the internal innovation. Let's go back to our Apple example and how the iPhone sales revenue completely cannibalized the iPod sales revenue. That's internal innovation. One of the reasons of the innovator dilemma, why it happens, is for those companies, it's an underinvestment in continuous learning, which makes it extremely difficult for companies, extremely challenging, to adapt fast enough to rapidly evolving markets. I have picked two really good examples. I'm sure some of you can relate. I used to own a Nokia. Anyone used to own a Nokia? Yeah, right, okay. Anyone used to own a BlackBerry? Okay. I used to love my Nokia, very long-lasting battery, super sturdy phones, and more importantly, I used to play Snake on that phone. Played so many hours. Not sure if anyone played Snake before, but those phones were the market dominance in the beginning of the 2005, right? Where is BlackBerry nowadays? Anyone owns a BlackBerry now or a Nokia? No. So the fall from grace was astonishing. And basically, the way to think about it without going into too much details, it's the value proposition was overshadowed by a misalignment in terms of the product going out there and the current market needs. What's even more astonishing is most of the solutions that came through Samsung and came through Apple afterwards were readily available in those companies. But that's for another keynote. So now that you have the innovator dilemma, the question is, what do we do when it comes to L&D? Well, the philosophy is the same when it comes to L&D. If your company relies on traditional L&D strategies to future-proof your workforce, your chances of falling behind are very high. So that means if you only rely on tech solution, you won't get effective learning. If you rely on traditional learning and development programs, you won't get effective learning. Which brings us to the last part of this keynote, which is marrying technology with the human touch or the human connection. You see, every time I log in on my LinkedIn, I don't know if it's the case for you, probably because I'm in HR, I see hundreds of ads for AI and VI tools, right? And supposedly they will solve all of my workforce issues, which I wish. So I'm not saying it's not effective. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter how enamored we are with technology and the tools available out there. If we forget the science behind education and learning, it is useless. Why? Well, because learning is not merely the accumulation of data. It's not just about accumulating data. It's the journey of application, it's the journey of interpretation, it's the journey of involvement and collaboration that makes learning stick. So let's explore this delicate balance. The first part is humanizing AI, obviously. As I said, AI offers incredible possibilities when it comes to bespoke and overall tailored learning journeys. But the multimedia learning theory, if you're interested, you can Google it, basically says that learning is much more effective and it sticks if it's done in a way that each learners, imagine you have a company of 10,000 people, each learners get a program that fits the cognitive, social, overall cultural and personal individualities. How amazing is that? The second one I want to highlight is the power of empathetic feedback. I personally love the fact that feedback from technology is instant, right? Super impressive. But the science behind research, behind feedback, suggests that it's only potent if it's actionable, if it's empathetic, and if it's scaffolded in Vykotski's zone of proximal development. That's a very fancy concept to basically say that coaching and mentoring are key when it comes to effective learning. If you want to make it stick, you need to incorporate mentoring and coaching in your strategies. The last bit, and it's pretty much an obvious one, right, is how do we combine both worlds? Well, that's the social learning theory that basically says, look, if you want it to stick long term, you need to incorporate this learning, the tools and the programs with collaboration. You need to apply this learning in a team context because not only it will work the hard skills, but it will improve the social and soft skills. So, because we're running now out of time, let me move straight to the conclusion. We are now in a situation where we have access to the tools and technologies only our predecessors could dream of. It's incredible when you think about it. We have the power of AI at our disposal to reach global network, but we also have access to the speed of real-time data. What a time to be alive. But our job, our business leaders and technologists, is to ensure that those tools and technologies are centered and anchored in the human experience. We started our journey in the beginning of the 20th century, where we found out how the US government invested massively in education to become one of the most leading educated nation out there. Then we touched a little bit on the high road and the low road strategies. We navigated a tiny bit the innovator dilemma. I think we now all understand the importance of continuous learning. And what I'm saying here today with this keynote is, although technology offers incredible capabilities, the future of work does not lie in data streams and algorithms. It doesn't. It lies in marrying the tools and technology available with the human connection, with the social connection, and the overall understanding of the science behind education and learning. Thank you very much.